Hey family, we are back with another just great segment in wellness, on wellness all day long. We've been hearing from different voices emerging and pioneering in various ways from different industries, and this hour is no different. We have another great friend of mine who is coming on to share, and I don't want to give too much away without first bringing him on, but that sound clip, that video that you just saw was just a little bit of what you're going to get out of this segment. And as you continue, hopefully to follow and to get in touch now with the founder and generator of this space, you'll see that there's so much more to come. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in my friend Harold Edwards, founder of Space for Seekers and Sharers.
Hey.
Harold.
Finally, right?
You know, first of all, I've been asking to interview you for like a year now.
Has it been?
I just want to put that out there.
I appreciate that regard. I really do.
So, first of all, I just want to say that Harold is literally currently and probably now forever, like just one of my most favorite people, because you will find out why, but it's just so much. It's so much magic. It's so much brilliance. And I'm gonna be hyping you up this whole conversation. I just want to say that too, because it's real. It's so real. But before I get too far ahead of myself, I want you to just take a moment to introduce yourself and just talk to us a little bit about Space for Seekers and Sharers. But before you do that, just tell us about Harold.
Harold. Okay, well.
Because I know.
I'll refer to him in third person. He would no.
Okay.
I'm joking. I was born and raised in Atlantic City, New Jersey.
Really?
Yes. I lived in Brigantine, but all of my family lived in Atlantic City, and I went to school in Atlantic City, and so yeah, South Jersey.
When did you wait a minute? Okay, when did you come? When did you get it? When did you become local to me? Because Atlantic City isn't local to me.
Well, okay, so fast forward, we met each other in college at Drexel University in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
We did.
Yes. But around the time that when did I graduate? 2003. In 2003, when I went to Drexel, that was the time that my father actually moved to Sewell, New Jersey.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
And so I had family in Atlantic City. I lived in Sewell. Went to school in Philadelphia.
Got you. And I think it's worth mentioning in terms of Drexel that you did undergrad as a engineering.
Yes, mechanical engineering and mechanics. And
we gotta make the connection of how we got from there.
For sure. I like systems, I like systems, and I like to understand how things work. And that was my way of connecting that curiosity with the world at that time. I do not work by degree, I am an engineer. I do not work in that field. I work in education, but there are systems that are tangible, like gears and airplanes and, from a design perspective, but then there are systems and designs that are intangible. And so a lot of the work that I do now is more so with the intangible. So, I guess an overarching way of looking at that engineering mindset. And what's interesting with that is when I graduated and I got into education, a lot of the focus was on trying to help students develop this mindset of a scientist, an engineer, having that curiosity to understand things or to want to understand things. Also, critical thinking skills, self-reflection, metacognition, all of those things, which were signature to my experiences. Trying to become an engineer or becoming an engineer. And so that mindset served me very well because I was very much a utility during my time with the School District of Philadelphia, to serve in that capacity in STEM education, STEM as in science, technology, engineering, and math. Yep.
So
my life just sort of flip flopped. I really did want to become an engineer or to be an engineer. And I wanted to retire in education. And so it's interesting how that happened.
I just want to say selfishly that I think education is blessed to have an engineer like yourself. Because I think to the point that you're making in terms of like systems and like now applying what initially was in a tangible space, right? And now applying it in education in a more intangible way is exactly what I feel like we need as a part of this whole restructuring that is necessary, especially in this moment with the way the Black community is. All of that's going on. I'll just say that because I'm trying to keep today's conversations very focused on the celebratory aspect of everything. So, but yeah, I mean, I love that, and I love that you're in education because for obvious reasons. So make the connection for me now with Space for Seekers and Sharers. When did you start with that?
So unofficially, I started in 2018. And so to sort of, I guess, start from the beginning, I've always been, we talk about, on our off time, we talk about a lot of, like who are our pioneers, who are the people that sort of like were pioneering in our lives and sort of exposing us to various aspects of life that would be life changing. And one of those people for me was Bobby McFerrin. Those who don't know him, Bobby McFerrin is a living legend, vocal genius. His prowess is like through the roof. His improvisational skills, second to none. He's amazing. If you don't know him, please get to know him. But he has coined a term, circle singing.
Mm-hmm.
And circle singing is basically community singing. And so, we know since antiquity, tribal and community singing, has existed. So Bobby McFerrin didn't necessarily invent it, but he coined a practice called circle singing. And he does a retreat in, where is it? Rhinebeck, New York, called Circle Songs. And I've been wanting to for years, but I was able to attend. And I want to say 2017 or 2016, I forget exactly when. But that was something that just changed my life. It changed my life. And when I got back, it was just like you have like all these aha moments and you just want to share the wealth and all the information that you get, like, from the retreat and workshops and, just the spirituality and transcendentalism that like occurred. Like you just want to just like share it. But I realized it was something that, people have to experience themselves. Mm. And at the time I was basically co-director for my church. And we were looking at ways to revitalize our worship arts auxiliary. And it was something that I wanted to do. And I was just like, we need to get into this improvisation piece and into this creating on the spot and coming up with spontaneous and inventions. We need to do that because it adds a balance to the rigidity of music theory and the rigidity of what we know as, or what we knew as, practice. And so I immediately employed it, of course, with the blessing of shout out to Corey Hutton, with the blessing of Corey, who co-directed with me, and we just explored it. We explored it, and for some reasons or another, I decided to do it on my own, apart from the church, and to sort of have my own little circle. And I started my circle. I asked friends to come out and support, and of course with the desire and hope that people would benefit from that spiritual practice, and witness how it transcends just singing, but that it spills over into other aspects of your life, where you sort of need that ability to be spontaneous and not necessarily impulsive, but be spontaneous and to be able to share things without feeling like you're going to be judged or whatever, but just sing whatever sounds you hear, say whatever words you hear, etc. And so, yeah, 2018, that's when I started my circle, and people came out, and, some people, would dip in, dip out, and that's fine. But I definitely have a nice little following where, people, they realize the value of that space. And October of last year, I made it official. I gave it a name, Space for Seekers and Shares, because that's something that was valuable to me. And I don't want to just ramble and go on, but there's even value in, okay, there's even value in me naming it Space, among other things, because of the connotations that are often associated with community, of membership, and a set of core values or a set of beliefs, and that. While that has its place, and I don't want it to diminish that, it definitely has its place, and it has its place even within my organization. I didn't want people to feel like they had to assume a certain personality or assume a certain role in order to be able to fit into the community. I just wanted us to think of it as space. Just think of it as when we're together, we create a space. The space between us is the space that we have the opportunity to create something that has never been created before. And so I'll just leave it there.
Well, I'm gonna rewind a little bit back to,
Sure.
in terms of you having developed this tribe, this following of people who believe in space for Seekers and Sharers. I'm
so grateful. So grateful.
I am very grateful to be one of those people who continues to show up and is empowered and impacted by the space, pun intended. And I want to come back to the conversation about space versus community. But before we do that, I'm glad that you mentioned Bobby McFerrin, because that is, even centering this conversation with the theme about honor and about honoring those who are emerging and pioneering, such as you, such as myself, but also honoring those pioneers who, no one is self-made, essentially, the ones who really gave us that space to be seen and heard and to even discover new gifts and talents and essentially brands to be birthed out of that. So shout out to Bobby McFerrin. I know he is not watching, Bobby. But then again,
he may.
Who's to say he couldn't be watching, Yeah. And so I think, again, I'm glad you mentioned that. And then the other thing too, like I said, grateful to be a part of space. I want to highlight, my own journey in coming in contact with space.
Please.
because I feel like it's a worthy story. Um, so I don't know. Was it 2000 and maybe 19?
No, it
Was it
was.
18?
I believe it was. I believe it was it was 2018. Yeah, it was around the time that it was unofficial but official.
Was it like fall, winter, maybe? I don't know. Point is that
Right.
I, like Harold mentioned, we went to Drexel around the same time and had met each other, but weren't really in connection, weren't necessarily like friends, um, except through Facebook. And so I think it was through no, it was through Instagram that I saw you post about, at the time, Circle Songs, which is now Space for Seekers and Sharers. And I was just like curious, but also very afraid because I was like, I don't really, really know Harold. And so for me to show up to his event, um,
Which was at my house in my basement.
true. The other thing, right? Um, it was just like one of them. It's like being a new kid and a new, like on the first, like in a lunchroom and not being sure where to sit. Like I was just having all these anxieties. Like if I walk into this space, how am I going to, like, what is my connection? And I kind of just got over it. And I think even on the first time that I came, I was coming from somewhere else. So I was running late and I was like, oh, I'm late. Maybe I'll try again. I was just like, Brittany, go, go. And I did. First of all, Harold is the most amazing host. And the fact that it's not just about um, this circle of people or gathering, but it's really about the environment that he's created, the culture that goes along with space, where it is inviting, where it is a judgment free, where it is literally no pressure involved. And so that alone made the experience not just bearable, but enjoyable. And I think from that moment, I kept I kept coming back. But I just was so glad that I got over myself and showed up because space has literally been a part of my journey in so many ways, personally and professionally, um, in terms of just overcoming fear and gaining my a confidence with using my voice and trusting my ideas. There's so many values. There's so many different things I could say about it, but again, the point is just thank you. Maybe that's the point. In the theme of honor, thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you. No, you're laughing, but we laughed offline about this, just my title and like all that kind of stuff. Like, yes, I'm the convener for space. Like, yes, I'm the founder of space. But the reality is, I either create space within myself to create, or I'm creating space with someone else, And
Mm,
so it's what, that's where seekers and sharers come into play, like it's an exchange, you know what I mean? It's an exchange and it's between more than one person, adding value to the space. And you do that. So thank you.
for sure. I'm tempted to tangent, but I just feel like in this moment, I'm going to persist
Isn't
forward.
that isn't that a classic us though? Like tangent upon tangent.
Seriously, seriously, I'm a chill for right now. But I want to go back to the conversation about community versus space, and just maybe get you to talk a little bit more about that. I know you already started to, but maybe just to speak a little bit more about what you were defining as the difference in the connotation behind both.
Yeah. I guess when you think of an auxiliary or like a social club or an affinity group or something like that, you automatically think of like a community of practice. and you think of like, okay, well, what's the practice? Okay, there are a set of rules, there are a set of guidelines. I have to be this to fit here, to fit in here, or whenever I am here, then I have to present this part of myself or bring this part of myself to the table. And, like I said, like I don't want to diminish it because it has its place,
Mm-hmm.
as a community of practice. Like, we all can, identify some affinity groups that we're associated with, but I wanted, I wanted people to feel like they don't have to come in with their best self. Like I wanted people to feel like where you are right now is where you are. You know what I mean? And you can only give what's available to you, at that moment. And I wanted people to feel like, when they're in this space, anything can happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, and you're not, you don't necessarily have to conjure up anything or be something that you're not, or be something that maybe you are, but you're not at that moment. Like you don't have to do all of that. Like you're coming to the space. You don't have to, there are no bylaws or qualifications to like be a part of it. Like you don't even, like a lot of the things that we do has to do with sound and rhythm and stuff like that. But like you don't have to be a singer to enter the space or to approach the space. Like you don't have to be a singer. Like you just have to have the willingness to be. I know this
Mm-hmm.
sounds so like vague, but it's the truth. Like you just have to be willing to be who you are in that moment,
Yeah.
unapologetically.
I know we started off with the video, and I'm glad we did because I think as we're talking about this, like we know what what we're referring to when we talk about coming into the space. Um, and so people who are watching, if you missed it, hopefully you'll be able to catch the replay, and we'll also show something else a little bit later. But um, what maybe we should explain a little bit more about that. Like, what when you come into this space, what is the and you can or can't get into like the whole spiritual practice of it, whatever you feel like makes sense to express it. But
Mm.
what essentially are people walking into when they come to space?
What are they walking into? Um, the idea is to design an experience that um, it's ever changing. It's based off of the vibe and the energy that is the group. And so
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that and this is from Bobby McFerrin, and being in that being at that retreat, year after year. Like one of the things that we do is we remove our shoes, for us to sort of be grounded, for us to sort of I guess model like that stripping away of what's separating us from everybody else, or the earth, or however you want to like look at it. uh
Mm-hmm.
and I guess you'll probably see it in the other video clip, but we because it's called circle singing, as you probably would assume, we stand in a circle. We stand in a circle, and within the circle you have someone who is conducting. And so the person that's in the center conducting is the person who has decided they were going to be brave enough to come up with something on the spot, as a sound, a rhythm, a movement, some words, whatever they're led to do, to come up with something on the spot. And so what they do is they assign parts as the parts are given. You have some people who are comfortable with creating in real time, where they're not necessarily thinking in their heads, they're thinking out loud. So they'll sing stuff. And I actually recommend that people do that, because I don't want to go off on a real tangent, but when you do that on the spot and in that moment, and you do it out loud, it helps you yourself to defer judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And also in getting whatever, like it doesn't have to be perfect, like we have this thing like that was flat or that was sharp, or that wasn't in the right, like all of that is at the door, and it has
Mm,
its place. I'm going to reiterate, it has its place because music theory is that's my jam. I love music theory. It has its place,
mm-hmm,
but within this space, like you don't have to worry. You don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about that. And so when you're doing it out loud and you run out of breath because you didn't do the proper breath management, like who cares? You know what I mean? Like you do something that may not be within that scale. Who cares? Like there's Eastern music and Western music. There are microtones, like all kinds of things that like we can say to justify it from a theory standpoint. But aside from all of that, you just bring whatever comes up as you're thinking, say what you're thinking, sing what you're thinking, and like I really encourage people to do it out loud. But you do have some people who prefer to do it in their head, and that's fine. There are no rules, just tools.
mm-hmm,
But yeah, that person, and as they're coming up with stuff, when they would say, okay, I want to stick with this idea, then they assign it to someone. And so they look at someone or a group of people within the circle and they say, hey, like, they'll signal, I want you to sing this part. And then they sort of layer now. So now once one person has their part, or those people have their part, then you move on and you sort of like create different layers on top of it, and you're composing in the moment. And so
mm.
that's really what you walk into. You're walking into real time composition
And I
as a
think
epiphany.
no, that's perfectly explained. I think the whole concept of like you're talking about having to just leave at the door the perfect notes and like that, those anxieties. Like I know for me, I think it took me a couple months. It might have took me like a full year. I don't know, but it took me a while to like get out of my head
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because that is almost like you're unlearned. Like in that space, you're unlearning a lot
Mm-hmm.
of what you've learned, especially growing up in church, where the
Mm-hmm.
goal is to be on point. The goal is
Mm-hmm.
to bark down, sing down, whatever the goal was. People are side eyeing you when you ain't got the note right.
That's all right, baby. That's all right, baby. Keep on keeping on.
They say that's all right, but you're gonna hear about it later on. So it's just like this. I think even the clip we played in the beginning, like I remember when we talk a little bit about that. What about that clip? Just what that was all about, and then I'll
Sure.
say what I want to say.
The date was on it, and I forgot what the date was, but it was
I think May 25th or something.
yeah. But was it last year? Was it 2018? I think no, it was
19.
2019. Yes.
Mhm.
So yeah, last year. May you know what? It was that weekend was the weekend that we were celebrating the anniversary of Space actually.
Mm,
Because that's when I decided to start my own circle and all that kind of stuff. But nonetheless, that was an amazing opportunity. First of all, like Judson Memorial Church, like huge fan and proponent of what they do and who they are. Like they
mm,
are legendary in my eyesight, historic in my eyesight in terms of how they have championed activism and um, just what they stand for. Their level of openness to experience is like second to none as it
mm.
relates to compared to like a traditional church experience, or one of my my traditional church experiences, I should say. Um,
Gotcha.
and so it was such an honor to have that space, pun intended, to share. And typically they have a Judson Arts Wednesday where they allow artists um, to like perform or to do their things, showcase their art, or they even have dancers and everything, dance and what have you. And they also feed the homeless, or whoever comes. They're able to get food. I should just say the hungry, not the homeless. But they do amazing work there. And I partnered with them for that event, and it was just an awesome opportunity for, a budding organization to have that space, that platform, and the partnership. Like I'm just like super grateful for it. But what you
Mm.
saw in the beginning and what you'll see in the end was the beginning and the end of a circle that I did to sort of open up the session. And yeah.
So
Okay, was that good?
that was great. So
Good
the
question.
reason that I wanted you to give that context is because I want to highlight some growth. Um, and just like how it has taken some time for me to fully embrace, and not just embrace, but to understand the concept of it's okay if it's not perfect. Can you see my quote? You know what I mean? Perfect. Like
Mhm,
it's okay if it's not translated even like in the exact way the conductor
mhm,
gives it, and
mhm,
someone takes it in and interprets it a little bit differently. I think for me as a songwriter, like that was hard to conceive, because it's like, if I give an artist my music to carry, I want it to be, not that they got to sing it the way that I sung it, but I want it to be, there's something I have in mind. And so if it is translated in a way that is completely off, it would tick me.
if I can jump in right there, as you said that, and since you already put yourself out there, I'm gonna just do it.
Okay.
Piggyback off of that. As you said that, I remember literally once that circle was done, I
Mm-hmm.
remember, I don't remember exactly like what you said, but I remember, the context. And you were asking me to explain, um, explain like what they need to do or how they need to sort of like participate in what's happening and how they need to listen for, for certain things. And you put me on the spot and I was just like what, like, what do you want me to say? Because in my mind, I was okay with things sort of like taking on its own life and, morphing, whatever. But for you, that
I was
actually was a
bothered.
testament of that rigidity. Absolutely. 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 But like I totally forgot that until you just said that. But yeah, 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 yeah.
But so
There's
the
nothing
way,
wrong with that. Because that was your journey, your process of letting that go. So I'm not
yeah,
like, condemning you or anything like that, but I was just saying that came to mind.
yeah. No, that's the exact point that I was going to make, in just terms of like, not even just that day, because it was 2 days consecutively that you were partnering with them to share with
Mhm,
space.
mhm.
And so when we went back the second day, and it was now like a much larger audience of people participating, it was just like, I don't know if it's like this mama bear in me that rises up and just wants to make sure that like people are okay, and like
Well,
as
what's
artists,
interesting. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, just as artists, like, you know, I don't know. I just recall myself in that moment, specifically the second day, um, as the parts were being given out. I just felt like it was almost like the leader in me, and I'm calling it that. And maybe, through some self evaluation, I'll realize it's something different. But the leader in me felt like it was my job to make sure that the part that I was assigned, and the people who were behind me were also assigned, was being conveyed in the way that the person in the center intended it. And so I found myself like trying to like sing louder and like just different things, not even present in the
Mhm,
moment, because
mhm,
I just felt that responsibility.
mhm.
Probably a false sense of responsibility.
No, 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 no. You bring up a good point. You bring up a good point because like to piggyback off what you're saying, like you do, like what we talk about seeking and sharing and that exchange when someone as you honor the conductor that's in the center and you honor their ideas and their thoughts, you want to make sure that you're taking the time to listen to what they're doing, before you just like blur out something or thinking that you have it. Like, you really be intentional about making sure that it's what they want and that they give you the thumbs up or the nod, or that they just walk off, meaning that you have it from here. Like you want that, you know what I mean? And so I think that that's admirable, and I think that that's important, and it has its place. At the same time, things sort of like take on, like when you're in the zone and you really lose yourself in what's being created, like you really like make it your own in some kind of ways, and that's you being by yourself. When you're with other people, there's like this unspoken like groupthink that tends to happen. Like I really, really, really wish that that well, actually, no, you did have an experience with a large group, because I remember we went to Bobby's church when he hosted circle singing in Philly. So you did have that. So I take that back. But you saw in that situation groupthink. Like, it's this unspoken groupthink that happens where as a group you sort of like shift, not just the dynamics or the melodic parts, but sometimes the speed like shifts, and like all of those different things like take place. And going back to Judson, another thing that sort of adds to the element of just whatever's going to happen is going to happen is acoustics. Like, the space that we were in with like the high ceilings and everything, like you had one set of people on one side of the room singing at one tempo, and then the other people singing at another tempo. And it's just like, if done strategically, like that could be like mind blowing, like in terms of like beauty. Like, it could be mind blowing to sort of like have this like swirl of like sounds at different rhythms and all that kind of stuff. Melodically, like that could be like beautiful. But if not careful, like it could lend itself to like you feeling unsure about where you are in the whole like piece that's being created, or you feeling like, okay, we're not doing what the conductor originally intended. Like, is that exchange, but the goal overall is to just, to like lose yourself.
Yeah.
And so, you mentioned it as a spiritual practice earlier. It really is, it can be a spiritual practice. It could be whatever you want it to be.
Yeah. Still growing in this.
We all are.
No, but you're right. You're right. There's so much more I could say about that, but for now I'm gonna let it go. So I know we're talking about it. It would be great for us to experience it. And so I know you have so graciously consented to just doing a little bit of this in terms of improv and creating almost your own little circle over there.
Yeah, this is the social distancing era at this moment, so it's just me.
Yeah, yes, but definitely, everyone, please just. I know we don't think about this in terms of performance, right? Like that's a little bit counterintuitive to what space is really about, but we're talking about Harold Edwards here, so we just know. We know there's some element of just like, oh, that's going to happen. So I'm going to be quiet and just say that without further ado, if I can, Harold.
Let's see what happens.
Harold's going to give us a sample circle.
Okay, so I prefaced early, and I'm going to preface again. I'm still trying to learn my little loop situation here. So we're gonna wing it and see what happens.
All good.
Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Dun 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 dun. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Dun do 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 do. Dun do do do. Dun do do do. Dun do do. Dun 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 dun do do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. 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 Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do do do. Do 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 do. Dun 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 do 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 do. I just wanna say that I thank you. I just wanna say that I thank you. I thank you. I just wanna say, I just wanna say, I just wanna say, I thank you. For everything you before I get carried away.
First of all, I don't usually have much to say after you get done doing circles.
It has that way of,
it ain't it. It's not it. It's Harold. Okay. And this okay, it's not it. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you. Like that. Every time I have an opportunity to circle, and it's sort of bittersweet. The bitter part is I'm always nervous in that I don't know what's going to happen, but the sweet part is to be able to escape and to like lean into that fear and lean into that nervousness. I feel like each time it like changes me, chips away at those like hard places. So, I always enter and leave space in circle singing with this like huge sense of gratitude.
Right. I came off camera because I just felt like no one deserved to know what was happening over here while you were singing, but And that's the thing,
So
like I hear you in the sense of gratitude, but I was just lost in another kind of way. That that again, I don't want to take away from the seriousness of not even just seriousness, but the intentionality. But there is something just amazing about your voice that I don't sometimes I miss the spiritual part and I'm just over here like wanting to throw my shoe through the screen. Um so just thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
sure.
Um I think that I don't even feel like there's much more for me to say. I feel like that was just a perfect way to kind of I don't even want to say put a period, a comma, because I feel like we have to do this again. There's a lot. It's so much in space and the concept of space. There's so many takeaways and moments of enlightenment that I have personally encountered and experienced that I would love to talk about all of them, and that's just not going to happen today. But all I can say is to anyone who is in the South Jersey area or someone who's just willing to, take the drive to be a part of something. Of course, afterward we get through this corona situation, but space is something that you need to experience. And I'm glad you got to get a little bit of it today, but it is something that you need to actually be in the room and experience. Um, Maybe not for everybody, but I do believe that there's value there for the creative who's just looking to I'd say for me, just going back to my own personal testimony, and it is find your voice, find that sense of freedom, find uh, just a tribe of people where you don't have to show up perfect. And I am so grateful, genuinely so. Um, so I'm gonna stop talking and just ask Harold to just tell us, like, if anyone is, we'll put the information back up on the screen. But for anyone who is interested in learning more about Space for Seekers and Sharers, and just, I know even outside of, we didn't even get into the fact that even outside of these circles, that there's also other things that are happening. We're currently finishing up a book club right now. So just, yes, tell us how we can learn more, know more, and essentially become involved in what space has going on.
Sure. It's really as simple as finding me on social media, reaching out. My handle is at 3x louder, 3 times louder, or for Space for Seekers and Shares, it's at space for the number 4SS. And just direct message me, and I definitely am happy to share more about what the organization is, what we represent, to share more about ways in which you can connect. As Brittany mentioned, excuse me, as Brittany mentioned, there's definitely opportunities that we're sort of creating to connect virtually. We are finishing up our book club, which I've like coined Turning Pages, and we're reading MetaHuman. And like this Monday, we had an awesome experience. A friend of mine actually came in and did some contemplative practices with us that sort of relate, not sort of, it does relate. It relates directly to what we're reading in MetaHuman by Deepak Chopra. We went through some like breathing and some body work exercises and stuff like that. And it's definitely this whole quarantine situation. I know that it has everybody sort of thinking of creative and innovative ways to engage their audience, but that's definitely something that's at the forefront for us at Space, trying to stay engaged and keep each other covered and make sure that we're all right and connecting. So We love for your new people to join, to be a part. Reach out to me.
Reach out. Of course, we'll share as we're, continuing to promote the different events. We'll share out the information on our social media pages as well. And I do want to just also, before we wrap this up, want to add that if you appreciate Happily Better After, let's just start with this Juneteenth programming that we are out here giving y'all. I am telling you that it would not have happened without Harold Edwards. It would not have happened. And so I just want to plug that Harold, as the leading consultant of Space, has, partnered with Happily Better After and has been walking us through essentially a restructuring, a rebranding. Mm-hmm. He talked about systems, like really just putting all of our stuff on the table and helping us make sense of it. And I cannot tell you how grateful I am, and just how, again, as I said, we would not have even have thought, I would not have even have thought to try to pull this off had I not spent the last several months really going through those processes. And so I don't know if Harold's taking clients, but I'm just letting you all know, you are literally experiencing someone who is brilliant in more ways than we can talk about in this hour. And if you are enjoying the refreshed content of Happily Better After, and as we keep progressing, it is honestly in part because of just the support and partnership that we've received from Space, and specifically Harold. So with that in mind,
I appreciate that.
There's no way
It has been rewarding. It has been very rewarding.
Yes. So this has brought us almost to the full hour. Again, Harold, thank you so much for this. Is just the beginning of the conversation. All I can tell y'all, definitely stay connected, get connected if you're not already. And again, Harold, just thank you.
Thank you.
And so to close this segment out, we're going to just highlight one more video from the Judson Memorial Church partnership that Space had did that back in 2019 in May. And so enjoy this last video.
Thank you.